So today's webinar is presented by Mana Arabi, CEO and co-founder of PhilConnect, as well as myself, Waida Khater. And our objective here today is really to highlight an overlooked segment of the construction industry that generates unnecessary waste and consumption. Sorry, I'm going to ask if you can please mute there just a second, okay? All right, so let's go back to the objective. Our objective here today is to highlight an overlooked segment of the construction industry that generates unnecessary waste and consumption, and also to identify key stakeholders that can benefit from a circular economy and address obstacles that can stand in the way. And we're also going to talk about revealing the cost-effective solutions that can accelerate a migration to a circular economy, and also pinpoint your career and business, how your career and your business can fit in this changing dynamics. Whether you're a student, whether you're working for someone else, or you have your own business, we're going to see how that all affects you. Now, today's webinar is sponsored by PhilConnect, the Dirt Exchange forum platform, and it's presented by Mana Arabi as well as myself. Now, Mana is the CEO and co-founder, and she's the one with the engineering background. So Mana is a civil engineer with over 20 years experience, and she has worked on many private and public projects in Canada and the United States for prominent companies such as Drogados, SNC-Lavalin, Norland, Lafarge, and Eurovia. And the idea of PhilConnect was her idea that she pinpointed over 2 years ago. And myself, I'm Waida Khater. I'm the founder of Magnus Media, a communication design agency, and I helped Mana bring PhilConnect to life from a technology perspective. So now, before we dive into the topic of the webinar, I wanted to clarify what is a circular economy, because we need to know what is it that we're trying to address. A circular economy is an economic system aimed at eliminating waste and encouraging the continual reuse of resources. So why would this be important? Because when we look at the construction industry, we see that as an industry, construction consumes around 40% of virgin material. And at the same time, construction is also producing between 10% to 35% of waste found at disposal sites. Now, these are large numbers considering that it's only one industry only. And this problem is so big, and you might have heard about plastics, about woods, about concrete recycling, but maybe excavated soil, which is one of the biggest sources of waste that you've never heard of, is something that might be new on your radar. Or if you're joining us here today, maybe you're already aware of that problem. Now, why is that a problem? According to Euroactiv, which is kind of when we're looking at Europe, Europe has much a smaller area rather than North America, but in Europe, excavated soil is generating 5 times the amount of household waste. Now, that's a big number when you're thinking of household waste. And at the same time, excavated material, the transportation of excavated material is contributing between 7 to 8% of the carbon cost of a project. So if you're a construction company or any business, you're trying to lower your carbon footprint, you need to look at everything. And 7 to 8% is a big number. And if you're trying to reduce waste, also 5 times the amount of household waste, that's a big number. So how does this translate to Canada? Now, getting the numbers for British Columbia was hard because these numbers, actually for entire Canada, because companies are very secretive. It's a secretive business. They don't really share what they end up doing with that material. But we do have an article from building.ca, which one of the authors kind of pinpointed areas, for example, in Ontario. Excavated soil in Ontario, that was about 3 years ago, was between 16 and 25 million cubic meters. And so to get a visual, they had created this infographic here to show that it's almost 10 to 16 times of Rogers Center, filling that all up with that excavated material. And it's also between 1.6 and 2.5 million truckloads. So just imagine on the highway, if you had to deal with that amount of millions of truckloads, carrying soil from one location to another location. And in many cases, we have no idea where it's going. So this is really a challenge for the construction industry, and this challenge has several points. First of all, it's the heavy reliance on commercial dump sites, because right now construction companies, when they need to get rid of that material, they don't know where to take it. So they end up consulting with a dump site or commercial dump site or contaminated soil facilities if it's a contaminated soil. And if they need new material, most likely they're going to go to a vendor and purchase new material. And that new material might come from a mountain. mountain that's blown up, or a mine where they get that material from the ground. So this is very expensive and also exhausting land resources. Now, the other side of it, the other challenge is that there's no industry collaboration. So right now, very few people are collaborating to solve that problem. And the third and biggest problem, and that's the one that many people are facing, is the rising land cost and increased trucking fees, and also the lack of nearby options. Now, if you are in an urban area and if you're building a high-rise, there's very few areas you can take it locally. You're going to have to remove that and take it somewhere far. So that rising cost is also contributing to illegal dumping, because when a construction project, they bid on a price and now that material is costing them more than what they bid, it's not going to be profitable, and that's where the borderline problem emerges. Now, this is becoming a bigger problem that's affecting us all. It's not just affecting the construction industry. It's not just the company. It's our problem as well, as individuals, as the population. Why? Because many of that material sometimes ends up in places it should not end up. Now, in some cases, it might be going to a farm. A farmer has a big land, and maybe their crop is not as profitable, and someone says, okay, I'm going to come and pay you to put my excavated material on your land. Now, a farmer might think, well, sure, this is my land, I can put whatever I want on it, but that's not the case, because that material could be contaminated, the pH level could be the wrong, not compatible with the ground in the area, or it might have insects or other organic material that's not compatible. And that's why the material needs to be tested before it's put on the ground, because the material, when there's rain, it's going to penetrate the water system, it affects our water supply, and then it goes in the food that we all eat as a population. So that's why it's a population problem, and it's not just the construction industry problem. Now, of course, everyone is realizing that this is a problem, and that's why we have now environmental regulations. Now, if you joined us 2 months ago, we had a webinar called about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and that was addressing why construction companies need now to address the environmental factors when they're bidding on a project. So what are they doing to conserve the environment? What are they doing to recycle material? So it is becoming an issue that the big players are looking into, and that's why if you're a construction companies and dealing with that, then you need to also keep that on your horizon, because if you're bidding on project, addressing the environmental factor is going to impact whether you get that contract or not. Now, when we take a deeper dive, we're going to see it's a two-sided problem. It's not just a one-sided problem. And that's really anything in life. When you look at it, it's a communication problem. And so what's happening here right now is, what do we have? We've got two parties. We've got one party that has excavated material. That's when every time they want to build, they have to remove that material, excavate it, they have to test it to see the quality, is it contaminated, and they have to transport that material. So there's three things they have to deal with as a problem. Now, on the flip side, there are other project sites that need fill placement. For example, if you live in Vancouver, like I do, and you look at Cole Harbour, you look at Yaletown or Falls Creek, all of these were built on landfill. So that fill had to come from somewhere. And if you passed by a bridge or you went on an embankment, chances are there was some kind of material used as fill to create that embankment. And in that case, you need a permit to accept that fill to make sure it's compatible with the ground you're on. And you need to buy new or reused material, and you also need to pay for the cost to bring that material to your site. So when you see that there's now two parties that they could be complementing each other, you might be thinking, well, the solution is simple, right? Well, it is simple. It is a collaboration solution. That's what's happening. What if we can get the people who need fill to talk with the people who have fill? Now we're talking about something of a massive reduction in that excess material that no one really knows where it's going right now. Now, when we look at the Canadian market, because we're in Canada here right now, Statistics Canada showed that in 2020, there was over 376,000 construction companies. Now, if you take a closer look at the slide, you're going to notice that most of them are in the micro and small size. So you'll notice that about 62%, 61.9% are micro, between 1 and 4 employees, and about 37% are small, between 5 and 99 employees, and just over 1% are over 100 employees. But when you're looking at the construction sites on the highway or something, chances are it's probably be the big players who are bidding on these projects. And these big players already have a solution. They are probably dealing with some of the brokers. They're probably they have their own supply. They have the budget to go pay commercial dump sites. And they also have the budget to have enterprise software that helps them track where is that material going, how much it's costing them. But when you look at the small players, chances are they don't have that software and that infrastructure in place. And many of them don't know where their material is going. They're probably still using a Gmail account. They do most of their deals on the phone. And so how do we get those two people to talk to each other? Because right now they're not. The enterprise players are probably talking to each other through their brokers, but the small players are not. So we need to address that solution. So that's another issue we need to highlight. And then when we dive deeper, we realize that there's more industries than construction that use soil and fill material. Now at PhilConnect, we identified some of these key players. And I'm going to invite right now Mana Arabi, because she's an engineer and she was able to identify some of these areas and dive deep in to show us who are the multiple collaborators, what's in it for them, what's holding them back from collaborating. So let me make sure, Mana, are you? Yeah, there you are. And let's see if we can hear you. I'll let you take over, Mana.
Thank you, Huwaida. So these are just some of the collaborators that we have identified, but of course, anybody can collaborate. And this is not limited. It is not limited to this list. The first collaborator that we going to look at is excavation company. This is an obvious one. They excavate most of the time for foundation or any other construction projects, and they would need a place to take their material. So right now they contact dump sites, commercial dump sites, and they arrange for their material to go there. So how they can use PhilConnect is that, or a collaboration system, is that they can see who has a place that they can take their material to, and which one is the closest to them. Now, the holdback could be that the project timing, maybe when they have the material, the other place does not need the material right away. The volume could be another issue. It just doesn't match. Maybe they have a lot of material, and then the fill sites, they don't need that much, or vice versa. And the other thing is liability, and that refers to the quality and property of the material. It might not match the need of the other person. Dredging is similar to excavation. It's just the difference is that the excavation from the water. The material from dredging most of the time is really good material that can be reused as structural. It could be sand from the river or the bottom of the ocean. All this material can be reused in a number of construction projects. And but right now that collaboration is not happening. Most of the dredging material from the river ends up in the ocean and not getting reused. The holdbacks are similar to excavation companies. It's the project timing could not work, the volume, or the property of the material. Next is commercial dump sites. So commercial dump sites, they're always changing. It's not like you have a commercial dump site that stays open all the time because they have usually a permit for certain amount of volume, and once they reach that volume, they have to close. So they always changing, and it's really good for industry to know where are the current dump sites. And if we could have a live map that showed where are the current dump sites are, then companies can collaborate with them and find the closest to their site. So they reduce on trucking. The holdbacks is lack of awareness. It's not everybody on a system that has live location of all the commercial dump sites. The capacity is that, like I mentioned, they always changing, and some of them are seasonal too. They close in winter and changing locations. So because they're changing all the time, it's hard to stay up to date. Contaminated soil facilities are similar to commercial dump sites. The only difference is that sometimes they are open longer. They're not as they're not changing as much as commercial dump sites. And the holdbacks are similar. The lack of awareness and limited capacity. They also have a capacity, although they go longer than commercial dump sites, just because of the volume. It's just the volume that they receive is a lot less than commercial dump sites, so they can be open longer. But they're pretty much the same, and the holdbacks are the same. Developers, they usually have multiple projects at the same time. So if they could have a system that they could collaborate even internally, that would help a lot. A lot of time, one of their projects could have excess material, and the other project need material, but they don't collaborate. So that's when a system can come handy that they can collaborate. But also they can collaborate with outside companies. They could take control of their projects from, because they're usually subcontractors or general contractors are working for them. They could help them find the better solutions and save time and money for them on their projects. Next is general contractor. They are usually same as developers. They have multiple projects working at the same time, and they could collaborate internally and externally. But a lot of time they rely on subcontractors to do. They sometimes hire excavation company to do just the excavation portion of their work. So they rely on them to find the best solution for them. But they can help, and they can start collaborating with nearby sites to help save money for them. Home builders, homeowners, that's similar to general contractors and developers in a smaller scale. And that's where we find the most, I guess, help or solution for our smaller contractors, that smaller companies that we have in our network, because they're not connected as much as the bigger companies. They don't know about this ever-changing commercial dump sites. There are some information that only the larger contractor have. So we found that this system is very useful for especially home builders and smaller contractors. As a matter of fact, we helped a homeowner save a lot of money on their excavation project, because they were able to find a dump site that was half a distance from what their excavation company had told them and quoted them. So there's a lot of advantage in using a collaboration system. The holdbacks is, like I mentioned, is relying on subcontractors, and the material might not be suitable to be reused in another project. Trucking companies. So a lot of time, smaller contractors and homeowners, they rely on trucking companies to find the best solutions for them for their excess material. And just because of the nature of their business, trucking companies know a lot of these commercial dump sites or any site that need fill. And they usually help their clients to find the best solutions. So now, if trucking companies had an interactive live map with the latest places that they could accept fill, this could be a huge help to their clients because they can now all of a sudden give them the best solutions and the best price. You might think that why would they want to go to closer site, because they get paid by distance usually or by hour, the trucking companies. But we think in the long term, to gain the trust of the clients and they get repeated business, it will be, in the long term, it will be definitely advantage to their business. Topsoil and gravel suppliers. So these are the companies that mine material, process them, and sell it as fill material. A lot of projects need specific gradation and properties that you would need to get it from a gravel supplier. But again, a lot of people don't know where are the gravel pits are and where is the closest to their job sites. They might know all the larger one that everybody knows, Lafarge, Lehigh, mainland sand and gravel, like in Lower Mainland in Vancouver. But there are many of them that a lot of people might not know. So it's great to be on that map to see where is the closest to your job site. The holdbacks is a lot of companies are used to working with certain gravel suppliers. They have a business relationship and it's just easy for the transaction. But it doesn't mean that's always the best solution. And in terms of the price and close proximity to their site. So again, there's an advantage to be on the map, all these gravel suppliers, so they can collaborate with the nearby projects. Landscape companies are similar to excavation or general contractors. It's just in a smaller scale, well, depending on the company and the project. But they usually both need fill and have fill. In some projects, they're doing some excavation, and then another, they need to fill low spots on a site, or they're building a landscape wall and they need backfill for their wall. So they might need material and they might excess material. The holdbacks are similar. Sometimes the project timing doesn't work. The volumes might not work. They usually work with the smaller volumes than big excavation companies. And the type of material might not match what they need. Cities and municipalities, you might think that how do they fit in this list? But we have spoken to many cities and municipalities, and what we found out is actually a collaboration system would be great for them. A lot of them in Lower Mainland here in Vancouver, they have a dike system that they need to maintain, and they always need material for that to add to the dike system. So they're always looking for material, and this would be great if excavation companies that have suitable material, clean material, they can collaborate with municipalities. They also have their own crew, most of municipalities, that they do their utility work and some road works. And again, they might have excess material and they might need material for some of their projects. So it's great if right now that's not happening. The construction companies and municipalities, they don't really collaborate that way. They do project for municipalities, but they don't, not that I know of, they don't collaborate in that regard. But it's great if there is a tool that they could collaborate and help each other.
So yeah, thank you, Mana, for walking us through all of these multiple collaborators. And I know over the last few weeks, we also identified there could probably be more. We identified that there are some companies that deal with organic, cleaning up soil for organic use. And there's also the farmers that could be added here as well. I mean, they could be taking sand, if soil, if they are using the right and they're testing. And then another ones that we could be thinking of are the brokers as well, because some of the brokers could be collaborating as well and right now handling many of these deals. So if they join the collaboration process, not only can it help the brokers to find new sources that they might not have thought about as well, so it can help them kind of move that soil a bit around faster. So it is really a conversation for multiple collaborators, and I'm glad that you walked us through the pros and cons of each one. And then we also highlighted, so the three main the areas was the timing. So how do you time that thing with each other? So then that means the more collaborators we have, the better the timing can be. And then this is an area where maybe some people can come up with more solutions, maybe have a transfer station where when that material is dug up, it can go somewhere in the meantime to get treated for other reuse. So this really can open, while we might think it might be limiting some businesses, but in many ways it could be opening many other business opportunities for the people who can see the opportunity here. Now let's see what else we had here on the agenda. So that's why, Mana, you came up with that idea for PhilConnect. I remember I thought it was, it's been a while, but now I've been tracking. It's been almost 2 years in August 2019 when we started building this platform together. And really the objective was to help people find something on the map, because I know this is something you faced personally working with your engineering and bidding on projects that you're working on, that this was a problem you identified of what do we do with that material, and that timing was always a problem. So that's why we built PhilConnect, where you can find all of the facilities. And every time we identify a new facility, we've been adding it. So you can see right now we've got contaminated soil, commercial dump sites, marine transfer stations, and anyone that has fill or need fills. And we're addressing the problem here where we're letting people view that information on a map so you can see who's close by. You can save on your trucking distances. And you can also filter by the quantity, type of fill, and the material. And you can upload and download supporting content and pictures. So we're making it easy for the multiple collaborators to collaborate. So the benefits here really for everyone is you can be saving time by locating nearby sites. You can be reducing your trucking distances, whether you're needing fill or need to remove fill, and you can protect the environment and reduce your carbon footprint. So there's a 3-aspect benefit here. And that's why when we built PhilConnect, we were thinking, how do we get these people? How do we get the big players, the people who already have enterprise software? They're paying thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on software solutions to track all of this. And how do we get them to connect with the 99% that are below 100 employees, if you remember that chart where we showed the breakdown, or the people who are the occasional users? So that's why with the pricing with PhilConnect, we did break it up into 3 points. Free, which is kind of like where we thought where 80% of the market would be. There's always that 80-20 rule, where 80% could be the occasional users. And so we want them to go in for free and list. So we're encouraging them so there's no barrier, and they can list their material needs, and so they can collaborate with the paying customers. So now, why do we have a professional one that's a paid client? We added that mostly for the government projects, because some of the government and big companies, they said, I don't want someone to see my email or phone number. I don't want someone to call me. I want to call them. So we created that aspect for the professional member where they can hide their contact and they get to contact whoever they want to collaborate with. And that way they avoid unsolicited calls. And they can also, by putting their credit card, we can identify that they are a real person. Now, for the enterprise, that's where the big companies, where you have some companies that have maybe 50 or 100 projects going on at the same time, and these project managers are not collaborating. That's where we created where they get their private map and they can collaborate internally and externally. So that's where the enterprise solution comes in. And so it's really very easy to use. So whether you have fill or you know someone that does or needs fill, the process is simple. Just open an account. You can start with a free, professional, or enterprise, depending on the size of your organization and needs. And you can search the map to see what's available right now, post your listing, upload your files, and you get to collaborate. Now, we're still expanding in new areas. So if you're in a new area or a new province that we're not there, do put your listing there. Someone has to start. So if you're waiting for someone else to do it, then they can't find you. So start, because you never know who's logging in and searching, and maybe they're looking for exactly the type of material you have, or maybe they have material that you need. So start that collaboration process. And we do have already good traction. We've got some early adapters we're seeing from cities and municipalities. We've also have some of the big players. People are seeing that this is a logical solution, but now it's a matter of how do we get people to change the habits and say, okay, I'm going to start collaborating more, and there's multiple savings here for me. And that I can collaborate with people I did not even think of. For example, if you're a construction company, you're not likely to be thinking, oh, I'm going to collaborate with a dredging company, or I'm going to collaborate with the landscape companies. But when you're on a platform like PhilConnect, you can. So we did go over all of this, and now I'm going to open it up for questions, because I would love to hear your opinions. But we do have 3 questions that came in earlier, so I want to pass them on to you, Mana, because this is something that you have to deal with on a daily basis in your job with estimating and a project manager in construction. So the first question that came in is, like, we talk about savings, but what kind of savings are we talking about really here? What are the savings if somebody is using a dirt exchange system?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can think of something. Let's say you have 100 cubic meter of material that you've excavated. Let's say there's 7 cubic meters of material in a tandem truck. So that means you will have 14 loads of material. And then let's say it's 1 hour per round trip to take the material to the dump sites that you had in mind. And at $98 per hour, you will have around $1,400 for cost of just trucking. Now, let's say you cut this distance by half. And that means you're saving of around $700. Which is huge in such a small quantity. And then you would have a dump fee of, say, $100 per load, and that's again $1,400. And then if you can collaborate with a nearby site that they take the material for free, now you have $1,400 that you don't have to pay on dump fee, plus the $700 saving on the trucking out of the $1,400. So as you see, it adds up to the huge amount. On the other hand, the site that needed the material, they were able to receive the material for free rather than going to a gravel pit and buy the material. So let's say they needed 220 metric ton of material at $15 per metric ton. That's $3,300 for such a small quantity that they save by collaborating. So as you can see, now you multiply this number by 10, 100 for smaller projects. The savings are huge.
It's true, and that's like 14 truckloads. Imagine when we're comparing to Ontario, where it's between 1.6 and 2.5 million truckloads a year. That now we're talking like millions of dollars of savings from money and time as well, because if you can know where to locate something right away, you're saving time, and everyone's doing their part for the environment. So, considering it's so huge, then why do you think the industry is not taking advantage of a dirt exchange? It's done with other things, maybe with wood, but why is it that dirt gets neglected?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is being in the construction industry for a long time. It's one of the last industry to adapt to changes and adapt technology. While every other industry, they're taking advantage of technology, construction has been really slow. So the traditional way is that each site superintendent or project manager, they know 10 people in their list, or I don't know, 5 to 10 people that they call when they get to a situation like this, and they call, and then if they can't find anything, they just go and rely on commercial dump sites and gravel pit, and they just that's it. That's the limit of collaboration. Just whoever they have in their phone book. So that I think that's one of those, and really, and until now, there hasn't been any system. There hasn't been any way of collaborating outside of your contact person. But you can imagine if you have access to everybody that is doing project around you, even if you don't know them, the potentials are huge.
That's true, and for everyone. So it is something we have to all collaborate with. Now, I know something you've mentioned to me several times when you're working on estimating projects, because that's what you do. You're estimating on a construction project, and then you kind of lined up a fill site where your excavated material is going to go. But then when the project site is live, maybe that fill site is already filled up. So what do you do in that case?
Yeah, that happens actually a lot. It could, I mentioned earlier that the dump sites have limited capacity. Sometimes they reach that capacity by the time the project starts. And the other reason could be season. A lot of dump sites close during winter. So if your project is delayed to start, then you get into the winter time. That's dump sites that you had in mind, it's not there. So right now it's there's no way, like, you call those 10 contacts that you have and try to find something, and most of the time is not closer. It's usually further than what you had in your estimate. So that's right away you lose some money on your project. And you mentioned that it's the majority, like for earthwork and civil projects, majority of it is in earth moving. So it's huge when you get a hit, when you take a hit on the big items on your project. So yeah, if you could collaborate and find something that is closer than even what you had in your estimate, then not only you're not losing money, but you're gaining money, and that this is great if it works. If all the parameter line up, and the quantity and the type of material works, it's perfect. It's every project manager's dream.
That's true, and so really it comes. Oh, no matter how we look at it, it really comes down to collaboration. We all have to collaborate, and it could open new ideas for people who have that transfer station, people who want to do the brokerage, or people who have the cleaning or whatever solutions. That's for people to really think where the industry is changing and the dynamics. We're moving more into the environmental factor. So this is where everyone can think, okay, how can I migrate my business to be more environmentally friendly and still make money at the same time? And there's a lot of money to be made with a circular economy, just because that's why it's economy. It's not just like, barter. It's like there's an economy here going on. There's money to be made in it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I know it can be hard to get people to participate on the webinar, but I'm glad to see that the people who joined us from the beginning are still here on the call, because I know you care. That's why you're here. Maybe you care from your business perspective. How are you going to add the solutions? How are you going to migrate your solutions? Or even if you're a student and now you're kind of graduating and you're going to be entering the market. So if you can start thinking, how can you save your employer when you're entering that market? How can you save and bring awareness? Say, you know what, you want to be environmentally friendly, you want to be ESG compliant, you want to be compliant on all of these new rules and regulations. One of the areas that could be is missed is that soil, the excavated soil. So that could be something you can do from that perspective, or if you're an employee, you can bring awareness and share in your company and say, hey, look, we can be saving money here. Don't you want to be helping your employer? And if you're the business owner, which in many cases construction companies are, they are the owner, it's a small or micro company, Imagine what can, every month or 2 months, how much of a savings of $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 do for your business if you're saving that, or you're helping your clients collaborate more, or if you become known in the industry as the company to go to find an environmental solution. So imagine like 5 years from now, when big companies are thinking, I need a trucking companies, but I need to be hiring someone who's environmentally friendly so that I can get more environmental points. They're going to be looking for that trucking company that's focused on that environment. They're going to be looking for the contractor, subcontractor who's doing that. So really, this is something we can all be looking in and participating in. So this is what I want to invite you, no matter what your position is right now, is to really collaborate and spread the message and help us be part of the solution, because unless we get more listings and get more people to collaborate, it's going to take a long time. But the more we collaborate all together, the faster we're going to get the solution. And last, before we wrap up for here, because I know we took 45 minutes and you'll have to go back to work, I want to invite you to be a speaker, because this is a problem that has many facets, and you probably have a solution. Maybe you're a part of, I see some people on the call today, I'm not sure why they're not speaking up, but you're in the environmental cleanup. So we'd love to hear your vision. What is your vision? What are you doing to clean up, for example, contaminated land, or if land remediation, or what maybe could you be that transfer station where you take material, clean it up, and then resell it as clean material? We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear about all of these issues, and I invite you to go to the Earth Exchange Forum or contact me personally. I'm going to leave the contact. Let me just leave them here in the chat. You can connect with me and Mana on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear from you. And yes, so here's the contact, and thank you so much for joining us today. One last call. Anyone has a question or comment before we wrap up? All right, so I bid you all a happy day, and thank you so much for joining us today and learning more about the new solutions. Till the next time, ciao for now.